So, with spring practices ongoing across college football, we're beginning to hear rumblings of players really starting to turn heads, of prospects impressing not only coaching staffs, but really beginning to generate excitement within the college football fan bases. And today, we need to turn our attention to the Colorado Buffaloes, because Coach Prime in Colorado did an awesome job both in recruiting and in the transfer portal, and I have no doubt there are several players that both the fan base and the coaching staff are very excited for. But there has been a player that, per early reports, is really turning heads, and today we need to break down why I'm not surprised in the least. Before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited for Jimmy Horn Jr. in the season he could have under Sean Lewis in this Colorado offense? Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions seem small, but they truly are massive, and we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And as I stated in the intro, I don't think there's any shortage of names you could give me and say, hey, I'm really excited about this individual. And actually, I'm really interested in hearing names outside of Jimmy Horn Jr. that you all as fans are excited about. I think there are so many correct answers. I think there are so many guys that could have big seasons, but whenever Jimmy Horn Jr. committed to Colorado out the transfer portal, transferring from USF to the Buffaloes, instantly, I said to all of you, this was a home run. This was a massive addition, and I thought it only got even better whenever Colorado was able to double dip and get Jimmy Horn Jr.'s teammate Xavier Weaver from USF, because those two together were hyper productive for USF, and I think that's going to be a trend to carry over to Colorado. Now, there are several reasons why I'm so excited about Jimmy Horn Jr. in particular. First and foremost, it's Sean Lewis and the offense I think we're going to see. Anytime I go back and start watching Kent State, I just think the way he calls his offense, it's going to be a pain for defenses to try and keep up. And if they can start stacking successful plays, it's going to be really hard to key in on what Sean Lewis wants to do. Whether he wants to run, whether he wants to do quick passes, deep shots. I think they're going to have a recipe to get defenses on their heels and to have defenses guessing. And at that point, they're in for a world of hurt. Reason number two is actually the wide receiver coach, because this is a really interesting tidbit for me. And we've talked about it before. I don't think this is some unknown factor that people aren't aware of. If you're a Colorado Buffaloes fan, you're certainly aware of this. It's Colorado's wide receiver coach, Brett Bartolone, because Brett Bartolone was the offensive coordinator for Coach Prime at Jackson State, an offense that was so hyper-effective under Deion Sanders and Brett Bartolone. Well, now, if you're Colorado, not only do you get Sean Lewis, a former head coach, the former head coach at Kent State, as your offensive coordinator, your old offensive coordinator at Jackson State, Brett Bartolone, is now the wide receiver coach. When you look at this from a player's perspective, that's exciting. You have a guy that is known for high-powered offenses as your offensive coordinator, and you have a guy at wide receiver coach who is just putting up big numbers as an offensive coordinator. So you love the coaching you're going to get, and I think that will lead to success, and I'm really excited about that. Another factor has got to be an established quarterback. If you're a wide receiver, you are dependent on someone getting you the ball. You could be the best wide receiver in the world, but if you have me throwing you the ball, I'm sorry about you. Luckily for Jimmy Horn Jr., he does not have me throwing him the ball. He has Deion Sanders. And one thing we talk about all the time, Deion Sanders is a legitimate quarterback. I know there are people wondering how is he going to adjust to the Power 5 game, and look, it certainly is an adjustment. There's no argument from me nor anybody who has played college football that it is going to be an adjustment. However, I always point everyone back to how successful he's been at every single level. This was an individual that Power 5 schools were really after, and he chose to go and play with his father, once again following his father to Colorado. I think if you're a Colorado fan, you've got to be very excited for Deion Sanders, but I think that also gives credence to my point. You have guys such as Xavier Weaver, you have guys such as Jimmy Horn Jr., and having that established quarterback that has familiarity with Brett Bartolone, but also has familiarity with college football, I think that's going to help every player on this offense be able to be more successful. Another reason why I like Jimmy Horn so much in this offense is what Jimmy Horn brings to the table himself. And this is really the meat of the conversation so many of you have been waiting for. Jimmy Horn Jr. is a Swiss Army knife on the offensive side of the football. Don't believe me? Go back and watch some USF. He did everything. Special teams. He was involved in the offense. He has got big play written all over him. His final season at USF, he only had 37 receptions, but he took those 37 receptions for 551 yards and averaged 14.9 average yards per reception. That is insane production. That's production that needs to excite a fan base. And now whenever you're hearing from spring practices, this is a guy that's turning heads, you need to be excited. Because luckily for Sean Lewis, whenever we look at some of the pieces they got out the transfer portal and think about it in relation to Jimmy Horn Jr., you get excited thinking about what all you can do with Horn. You can move him around the formation. You can start him on the outside, move him inside. You can create havoc through motion with Jimmy Horn Jr. to free up not only Horn, but other wide receivers such as Xavier Weaver. And another individual who I've been so excited about, and I've been very forthright, Seydou Traore, the tight end who I think is in for a monster year. We're going to talk more about him at a later date. But I have not hidden from the fact that I think Traore is going to be in for a huge year, not only for himself, but for this Colorado Buffaloes offense. But so too is Jimmy Horn Jr. Guys, I just think when we look at the totality of circumstances, when we look at Colorado getting an established quarterback, they've gotten some established pieces at wide receiver, and then you look at Jimmy Horn Jr., who is used a bit like a Swiss Army knife, because he can do it all. I think it's kind of painting the picture that he is going to be a massive piece to this offense. And one thing I talk about before we get out of here, whenever you're talking about these players that mean so much to these offenses, sometimes it's just as important to have them on the field when they don't have the ball in their hands as when they do have the ball in their hands. And let me break this down. I always talk about this whenever I talk about Texas and Bijan Robinson. And I talk about Bijan and I say, look, what makes Bijan so special is when he's on the field, even when he doesn't have the ball, you have to know exactly where he is. They send Bijan Robinson in motion, all of a sudden a safety steps up and a wide receiver goes right past the safety. Well, the wide receiver broke free, scored the touchdown, but Bijan Robinson was the unsung hero of the play. That's not something that's going to reflect in the stat sheet. But when you watch the film, you see how many resources defenses would pull to try and stop him. And it would create openings in the back. It would create mismatches. It would create missed assignments. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's the type of impact I'm projecting right now Jimmy Horn Jr. is going to have for Colorado. He's going to be a guy that's creating havoc even when he doesn't have the ball, because defenses are going to be so hyper-focused on him. I bet we're going to see instances of them losing focus on someone else, but I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.